Hey, this is Roberto Monaco here with one more Cairo speaking podcast. And today I have a rock star, rock star plus superstar, plus an amazing leader, an amazing friend, Dr. Pam Jarboe. What's up, Dr. Pam?
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so happy to see your face.
I'm so excited. By the way, I don't know if you guys can see, I wear this shirt and everybody goes, "Man, I love your shirt. Why did you get it?" I was like, "It was a gift from a very special person." Maybe you
We're
know that
lucky.
person who gave me that shirt, Dr. Pam.
I do. We got to see you at a MACP. That was such a special night in Massachusetts. So I was so happy to give that gift to you. You've earned it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So, a quick introduction here, a quick story. So, what I believe was a couple years ago, I was at the New York Cairo Council, and you were speaking, and I was speaking, and I'm like, and the first time I saw you speak, and you deliver so much value, and I
Mm,
absolutely love your content. You were extremely knowledgeable. Specifically, I love your when you talk about marketing because very few people they think marketing is just putting an ad, but you go super deep into marketing, and they're like, "Man, she's good." Then you came, say hello, and then we met up again at MAP, Massachusetts Alliance for Chiropractic Philosophy. Then I had the chance to see you speak for almost an hour, and you're doing your boot camp for your clients on marketing. Then I love you and your message even more. And then finally this year in Florida, we had a chance to get coffee, had breakfast, and I
yeah.
saw you speak. And I'm a big fan. First of all, I can define Dr. Pam. My favorite thing about you is that you're so authentic, so authentic. The same person who's delivering the message from the stage, you're the one talking, hanging out,
Mhm.
having breakfast, and you're so knowledgeable, so knowledgeable.
Mm,
I'm really blown away with
mm,
your level of expertise.
mm,
And I specifically love when you talk about marketing because I love marketing too.
mm, mhm.
Dr. Pam is a practicing doctor, so she practices and has an awesome coaching group called Cairo Bloom. There's a link below here. If anybody want to check it out, there's links in the video here. And she built and sold 4 of her own practices. She has so much experience. She coaches chiropractors from all over the world. As a matter of fact, we're just connecting about one talk she did in Europe,
Yeah.
and I was talking to meeting organizer, and they're raving about her, the talk she gave in Europe. So, Dr. Pam, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And I mirror every enthusiastic comment that you have about me because I feel the same about you. And, you talk about me in content, and I'm always very conscious about providing good content to chiropractors. It's an honor to teach them. I know how valuable chiropractic is, and it changed my life. And you and I have shared that experience. And I just want to acknowledge you. For anyone who hasn't taken any of your courses, oh my God, the content and the way you help me to shape that it's not just about the content that I'm delivering, but how it's received. And that was a really important teaching. And I'm still learning that. So thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you. So today we're going to talk about trust. When I ask um, Dr. Pam, what is in your heart right now? She goes, "I want to talk about trust." I'm like, "Oh, I love it. I love it."
Yeah.
And let me tell you why I love it before we get into it, because I've been there's a report that I follow every year. It's called Edelman Trust Barometer. So
Mm,
basically, they do this trust in all over the world,
mm,
right? And they measure the trust that people like us we have into businesses, companies,
mm,
non-profit organizations, media, and government. And year after year, right? Year after year, you see the trust declining. And I'm like,
mhm,
this is perfect. So I'm gonna
mhm.
turn to the expert now. So Dr. Pam,
Yeah.
why talk about trust? Why is trust important right here, right now, especially for
Yeah.
chiropractors?
Well, thank you. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but I am a lifelong learner
Yeah,
about
yeah,
trust. Right?
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
really important topic because all of our work is relationships. That's what you're just saying. You're building these relationships, and trust gets eroded sometimes. So, um, I think there are two types of trust, but the reason I brought this conversation back, I used to talk about it regularly from the stage because I felt that we had a negative trust quotient as our brand of chiropractic, right?
Mhm.
That people didn't trust the brand of chiropractic. They didn't understand it. They were confused by it. There's a lot of negative messaging around it. that got in the way of the promise of chiropractic, in my opinion. And so we didn't have a good brand, and trust was the result, or the lack of trust was the result of that. But now I wanted to bring back the conversation about trust, because now we're having a bigger conversation about trust at this time, where do people trust their own bodies? And the answer would be often no. And how do we as chiropractors help them to build that feeling of trust? And that's such an important gift that we have to give to them. But also the complexity of, do people trust us because of the climate and how we feel and how we think, and how do we build that trust in community, and how do we build the trust in an adjustment that is a standing problem that we've had. And so I was thinking about a story, so I just want to share the story to preface the conversation. One of my patients, we'll call her Mary. In Stigafoods used to always call all the patients Mary. So Mary came into my office many years ago, and she kind of drove me crazy, because she would come in and she'd be like, oh, I went to the doctor and I found out what it is. It's fibromyalgia. I'm so relieved. And I was like, congratulations. Like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, it's just so weird. And so then she'd come in the next time, she'd be like, oh, it's so great. I found out what's going on. It's lupus. And I was like, awesome. Like, it just was just such a weird exchange that she was so happy. And I wanted to dismiss her. And I called one of my mentors, and I was like, she's just driving me crazy. She doesn't get it. I want to get rid of her. Can't stand talking to her. She just bugs me. And every time she comes in, I feel like I'm wrestling her, and blah, 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 And I wasn't really being very compassionate to her experience. I was just in my own experience of, like, she doesn't think I'm like raving, she's not my raving fan. So I'm frustrated at her. And so, what my mentor said was really brilliant at the time. And he said, this person is overdrawn in the bank account of ease. So think about it. Like, from the moment two cells come together, a lack of trust is built. Like, is the baby okay? Better measure it, better weigh it, better again. Like, right from the beginning, the baby's born. The process of birth isn't safe, and we don't trust the body to do what it needs to do. And, there's so much on a cellular level where people have been taught not to trust, and that builds up. And so she came to me, and what he was saying is, look, Pam, if somebody came to you and said, hey, I got this stock tip, and you can make a lot of money, and you invested and you lost. And then somebody else said, hey, I got this stock tip, and you invested and you lost. And then somebody else gave you a stock tip. At some point, when somebody comes to you and says, I get the answer, you're going to be like, I'm out, I'm not into it. And that's what's happened with people's bodies, that repeatedly people think that their bodies are betraying them, but what they just don't realize is that they're betraying their body, but it's not malicious. And I think sometimes in chiropractic, we get super frustrated because we put ourselves into that equation. Like, they don't understand me. They don't understand what I know, when really they're just having a completely different experience, and they're just overdrawn in a bank account. And how do we bridge that gap and allow them to, one tiny step at a time, build trust back?
Is so powerful. That is so powerful. I never thought about that way. I thought the conversation is going to go towards, like, how do you build trust as another doctor. But, like, there's a step deeper. You know what I mean? Like,
First year.
I absolutely love this conversation about how do you get people to trust their own body.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's many layers to the trust conversation, because I also like to talk about what you thought we would talk about, which is, how do we present ourselves in a brand kind of way so that we build instinctive trust? And then how do we have a relationship with our patients and our vendors and our strategic business alliances that builds trust? There's so much in our life.
So let's talk about two things that I thought was fascinating. So let's talk about first, from a doctor to the public. Right? So from that perspective, because part of the research that I was reading, preparing for, for our conversation today about trust, is that trust level is down for governments, media, and nonprofit organizations, and the most trust entity is business, quote unquote, us, right? Business owners. So that's that. So I want to talk about a little bit about how chiropractors can either eliminate some of the things that they do that chop away their trust, right? And then let's shift the conversation for the powerful message about how you get your patients to trust their own body. So what do you see in your perspective? I know you coach a lot of chiros all over the world. What's sometimes maybe unconsciously what they're doing to prevent that they're doing to chop their trust away in the marketplace
Okay,
or
well,
reduce their
I know.
trust.
I'm like, okay. I have so many thoughts. Well, first, what I want to say is if anyone is interested in getting a course that I created about this, it's a free course. They can email me at drpamjarboe@gmail.com. Okay, so I can even throw that under the links. But I don't have a mechanism to deliver that right now, but that was what I did, years ago. I tried to teach people, and there are two things I wanted to teach. One was the instinctive trust triggers that we can build in our communities. That's like our outward facing message that we put out there. And there are several books that are written in business about this, but they're instinctive trust triggers that pharmaceutical companies use. So when you watch a pharmaceutical ad, they'll put in an older person, the silver gray haired doctor, because he has longevity and he has authority because he's got the coat on, and he has credibility because 4 out of 5 doctors recommend. Like, where'd that come from? That's a marketing campaign. That's not science. So right, but that's credibility because they're in a group of people who think the same thing. And so there's a way for you to instinctively build trust. And we miss some of the marks sometimes in chiropractic. So at least if we had that information, people would instinctively know that they could start a relationship with us. Then the next part of the course goes into what are the materials that build trust in a relationship that is a long-standing relationship that you're going to have with your vendors and your strategic business alliance clients and with your patients. And so that is very, very helpful information. So if anyone wants that or even wants a refresher of it, they can email me and I'll go into that. But the things that I was just talking about, the accountability, credibility, longevity, frequency, like frequency, an example of this, I love Joe Polish. I don't know if you follow Joe Polish at all, and like I've done talks for On Purpose with Patchen Tempo and Christopher Kent, and Pat, knows Joe and has talked to me a little bit about him. But I followed Joe for years. And one of the things he used to teach about was how he had a carpet cleaning business and he would go into these ritzy neighborhoods and he wanted those people to be his clients. And he put flyers in all their mailboxes and got no phone calls. So I think it was just his instinct. What he did was park his truck on Monday in the morning, at number 5, and then parked his truck at number 12 on Tuesday, and, kind of kept casing the neighborhood and just hanging out there with his car there. And then he did a flyer campaign and he got so many more clients because it was the frequency and the affiliation, which is what Bernie Madoff also got a lot of clients because they were affiliated with people. Once you break into a group, then you get that whole group. So if you know what group you want, you just have to figure out how do you get one person to trust you, and then you get that group. So anyway, it's a really smart process to understand instinctive trust triggers.
I love it. One of the things that to add so we have accountability, longevity, frequency. In a different word, I talk about that repetition increases believability, right?
Yes,
So
right.
the repetition, I know sounds tedious, but like repeating a message and being there in front of people increase believability. Right. So what do you think, to give like a very practical example here, when you coach someone and they're doing something maybe unconsciously that is eroding their trust? Can you give an example? Think about like, hey, not that nobody wants to do that, but unconsciously they're doing.
Unconsciously, right? Okay. Well, okay. This is kind of controversial, but I'm going to use an example of this time that we're in right now.
Okay.
We don't always consider everyone in the room. So, which, being controversial can sometimes be a marketing tactic. It can be helpful.
Yeah.
So you do get to go into that lane of being controversial, and that will get you a certain audience, but it also will repel a certain audience. So you have to be able to read the room of your community. Like, I coach clients all around the world, which you've talked about. Well, the community in Norway is very different than the community in Ireland versus Alabama versus Massachusetts. So you do need to be able to understand somewhat the culture that you're living in. But an example of breaking trust would be if you post stuff that isn't actually true. And so this is something we have a point of view, and we all know we're right. I'm kidding,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
so
we're right. Yeah, we're right.
we are. But anyway, so anyway, the point of view, we're so invested in it sometimes that we don't think clearly. So an example that got posted early in the pandemic was that the CDC approved smoking and said that smoking was good. Actually, the CDC didn't approve smoking. That it was the Surgeon General. It was a completely different channel. That was a misappropriation, and it was inaccurate. And sometimes people just speak from their passion, and we're all worked up, and we're all like spitting fireballs, and we don't really slow down to just check, like, is this accurate? And that we lose credibility when we do that.
For sure.
When we speak from spitting fireballs. It's very hard not to these days, so I just want to acknowledge that. But we do need to figure out how to slow our roll and actually fact check. That's something that
For sure, for sure. And I'm guilty of that. I am guilty of that. And during the pandemic, I post a couple people and I had to delete it. So I'm guilty of that.
I might exaggerate, like, you know, I mean, I love to, like, you know, be dramatic. And so I'm this always happens. This never happens. You know, it's like, that's not true.
Yeah. That's so true. So let's shift the conversation a little bit about, because I thought it was fascinating, talking about how to get your patients to trust their body.
Okay. So freaking hard. Trust comes in many tiny little experiences. I think that's really important for us as practitioners to be aware of, that just because someone walks into our office and we say, oh my God, your body's intelligent, doesn't mean that that's going to undo every negative experience they've ever had. So I'm just going to give you an example, and it's kind of a silly example, but it's a teaching thing. When I work with people, I always look for the wins, even with my coaching clients, because most people have problem-solving brains. So we're always aware of what's not working, right? So, and in a story, this woman came to me and she had such bad headaches that she was under a blanket during our new patient appointment. So I'm sitting there talking to this blanket, asking questions like, how am I going to do this? This is the weirdest moment, you know, in practice. And so we go to get to a re-exam, but she had been to all these different practitioners, including chiropractors and blah, blah. We go to get to the re-exam and she says, she comes in and she's all annoyed, you know, this isn't working for me. My hip is really bothering me and I don't think this works and you don't work and I don't believe in chiropractic and, you know, whatever, all the things. She's spitting fireballs. And so I said, okay, well, let's just take it one step at a time. Let's go back through your history. Tell me what's happening with your headaches. And she just mouth dropped open. I totally forgot I had them. And she had them for 14 years and she was under a blanket in the new patient appointment. I'm like, how do you forget that you felt that?
That's so good. That's so good.
Aware of the current thing that was bugging her. So sometimes her job is to be a memory keeper. You know, and the same thing as a coach, like people will come to me and be like, this stinks. Everything's horrible. I'm the worst. Nothing's ever going to work. And, you know, we just catastrophize and awfulize. And then when they actually look at their stats, they're further ahead than where they were. They're just ready for the next thing. And people's bodies are like that. So another example is like a little old lady was in my practice and she was one of those little old ladies like, you know, always like what wasn't working. And so one day she came in, she said to me, Dr. Pam, like, I think it's working. You know, I could turn my head this morning or I slept through the night or whatever it was, you know. And I said to her, oh, did you butter churn it? And she just looked at me and she was like, what? Butter churn? What's that? And I was like, you know, oh yeah. So she just looked at me like, what is wrong with this woman? And you got to butter churn it. I have listened to you complain about your body for months and you got to celebrate for this moment. And she butter churned and everybody in the office was cracking up. But, you know, it was like a great moment to just like, sometimes you have to emphasize that certain things are working. And
I love that. I love that.
Rip the veil of disappointment off, you know, or betrayal off of their eyes and really see there are trillions of processes that are happening right now without you having to make a checklist for any of it. You don't have to project manage this. All this is happening and they need a regular reminder of it because the world is filled with messages of what's not working for them.
I absolutely love that. Memory keeper. I wrote down here, memory keeper.
Memory keeper.
I love that. So what is the role of chiropractic education?
It's everything.
And frequency to help the patients trust in their bodies. What is the role?
frequency is one of the things that builds trust, and frequency in chiropractic is one of the kindest things that we can give to our practice members, because it takes time and repetition for them to build that trust, and it's really important. So and that's to me, that's just so basic and so simple that they need the reminders, because also they're getting pummeled with so many different stresses, especially during the pandemic. And so I remember when it first started, I live in Massachusetts, and it's a very liberal state, and people were really like ran for the hills. There was no one on the roads, when I would go to work in the morning. And I made a video that talked about offense and defense. Like, I understand you guys want to play a strong D game, by wearing masks and, social distancing, and that's D. But what about O? Like, what are we going to do?
That's good. That's good.
Instead of saying it's one or the other, how about it's both? Because, the Patriots got both. Let's work it. So anyway, so many people really appreciated that. And when I also would, just shifting the conversation, and with so much love, it's my nature. You know what I mean? I sometimes get criticized for it, but I will always try to do it from love. I believe that the sustainability of the message is so much better if I can come from a place that is loving. And that doesn't mean that I don't want to pop everybody in the throat lately, because I do. A lot of people, it's a very frustrating time, but I have to just constantly stay connected to a much bigger picture and a much bigger knowing that you can source, from life. And that's the best thing that you can do. And so I try to stay anchored into that when I'm talking to people, and just remind them, look, the percentages are this, here's the stats. I just kind of sit with the data, but in a really holding it lightly way, not in a charged. I pounced on somebody once because I was really angry, and it went so badly. And I was just like, oof, like that, I just need to do a better job. And I, especially where I live, if I was reading the room where I live, I have to present it in a measured way.
So let's say you have a patient, and the patient is amazing, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, best life ever.
Yeah, right.
And then eventually disappear. Something happens.
Right.
Something happens. Either through something happened. We don't know.
Exactly.
So, either they lost trust on themselves, maybe they lost trust on whatever could be.
Right.
So how do you rebuild that trust?
Yeah, okay. Sometimes trust does get broken, right? So first of all, when someone leaves the practice and they discontinue care, we have no idea why. And chiropractors spend a ton of time in their imagination about that, and sometimes turn it on themselves or turn it on the person.
Yeah.
And, I have spent way too much mental energy on that, for years, and I just don't anymore, because the truth is we don't know. Sometimes it's administrative issues. They can't come in because of the timing, or our wait time is too long, or, they moved, or their spouse didn't want them to. There's just way too many options for why that's happening. But let's say they thought it didn't work, because I just had someone, I did a reactivation on someone who came for years, and she goes, at some point, I just wasn't sure what the benefit was. And I thought, as soon as she said that, I took responsibility. So what I was going to say, that in our relationships, when trust is broken, accountability helps to rebuild trust. But true accountability. You didn't say I'm sorry.
I want to unpack that, because that's powerful.
Okay,
so
thanks.
Accountability helps to build trust. How so?
Accountability. Okay, so let's say you and I have a business relationship, and you don't show up to meetings, and you don't deliver what you said you would, and I come to you and say, I'm not sure this is working out. One of the ways you can rebuild trust is to be like, hey, I take 100% responsibility for what I did to create this mess that we're in. And here's what I want to do to repair it. That is like the most amazing thing. In any relationship, I don't expect anybody to not make mistakes, but I do hope that they will take accountability for it and make it right. And that is something that really can sometimes bring people even closer to you than they were before. Tony Robbins even talks about that at some point in his training, that like, you're not going to have it where people aren't unhappy, but the level to which you meet the need it's amazing, what can transform in the relationship.
So how do you, going back to your example, going back to the patient, so let's say that the patient said, well, I didn't see the benefit anymore, let's say, not trusting the chiropractic or her body too. So So how do you
Right.
feel? How do
It was
you,
both. Just so
okay.
you know, because as we spoke about it, it was both things. Number one, the belief that her body was broken and it couldn't do any better. That is something I hear so often, that people think like, I'm just kind of done. And no matter what I do, this is what I get. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel and like I'm a memory keeper for people, but I'm also like, I'm gonna call your BS and say that's not necessarily true,
Mm-hmm.
and that you had 50 years before you came to me, of abuse. And so to rebuild that takes many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to a much deeper level with her on this time when she came back. And it reminds me of Bill Esteb, because Bill says like people will leave on average 3 times before they choose lifetime care. So when I don't take it personally, I can build more trust when that person reactivates, and just take the current level and take the learning that they did get and then build on it from there. I went to a
Mm-hmm.
much deeper level with her because I really was addressing that idea that she's broken beyond repair. I did do a re-exam and did all the findings and talked about where we would start from here. And she's got a new care plan. But to be accountable, I was not doing enough re-exams for her. And so that was important for me to hear. I just thought that she got it. And,
Mm-hmm.
one of my coaches says they never get it. You can't assume that. Like someone could be with you for years, and she was, but that doesn't mean that they get it. And that doesn't mean that they're not struggling with their own relationship with themselves or their relationship to chiropractic. And it's really important to check in and re-energize the relationship. Just like any relationship in life, if you take it for granted, and you're not feeling it, that affects it. So before you ask me like, how much does patient education have to do with trust?
Mm-hmm.
A lot. We
Awesome.
assume a lot as chiropractors, in my opinion.
Awesome. That was powerful. So, a couple things. Number one, I want to know. So, tell a little bit about Cairo Bloom, what you do. I know there's link below here. People want to reach out to you. Can you
Thank
give your
you.
plugs
Yeah.
for the company? Yeah. What are you guys up to?
Okay, well, just, so your listeners know, I am in practice. I practice in Massachusetts. I'm in full-time practice, but I also coach chiropractors and their teams. And so if you go to chirobloom.com, you can learn more about it. But I do group coaching options, and I have very limited one-on-one choices at this point with people. But I often have done programs in the past. I haven't done them in the last 18 months, but, we'll be offering them again. And yeah, I welcome any questions and opportunities, and people can email me, like I said, at drpamjarboe, Jarboe @gmail.com, or you can private message me on Facebook, and I'll message you back with some information.
Awesome. So, final question here: How do you see the future of or the role of chiropractor in the world
Mm.
moving forward? Like
Well,
moving forward, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
yeah,
Where do you fit in? What is the opportunity? How does your lenses filter the
yeah.
profession, the chiropractic profession into the future?
Well, I am like an eternal optimist. Again, I get a lot of flack for that, but we are in incredible challenge. But I, in my life, have experienced incredible challenge, and that was fuel for me to reorganize at a much higher level. I am a chiropractor now because of horrible challenge, So I look at the challenge that we're in the world right now. And what I know for sure from talking to patients on a daily level is that people are in pain. Well, pain wakes them up. So I used to say the phrase often in my practice, like for years. I've been a chiropractor for 26 years, and I've said the phrase, your health affects everyone you know and everything you do. And when I would say that phrase, people would just go, yee, like nothing. It didn't even register. And now when I say that, your health affects everyone you know and everything you do, people are like, true that. Wow, that's so real. That's a really important point. My sister just came to visit, and I have been knocking on a dead door with my family. And my sister just came to visit, and she's like, that's profound. I'd made a poster. She's like, you have to figure out how to frame that. And I just thought, like, there's messages that we have that we've been saying forever that now, because of that pain, people are wanting that information and they're looking for ways. And so you might feel like, oh, these people get it and these people don't. But let's say these people don't, they're still in pain and they're looking for something. And so if you can figure out how to reach them, in a way that doesn't judge the heck out of them and create a ton of distance, and just allow them to be their kindergarten selves that you're growing into first grader, second grader, third grader. We don't get mad at kindergartners for being kindergartners. Why do we get
No.
mad at, right? Why do we get mad at patients for being kindergartners. They're kindergartners.
That's good. That's good.
Right? In the consciousness of health, they're kindergartners. Why would you yell at them or be mad at them? Help them to get to first grade, second grade, allow them to grow as you educate them. But people are in pain and they want answers and they need connections. And I believe that we have the answer. It's going to take some organization on our part, and it's going to take a lot of resilience, because I see chiropractors getting tired and getting upset, and they need to figure out how to stay okay and be really resourceful during this time. That is a trick. How do you stay okay? It's one of the biggest things I hear in my coaching, is that people are getting depleted and then they don't have their access to their ability to create. And so it's really important that we figure out how to hack ourselves so that we can be the best version of ourselves during the challenge, because that's what could make the big difference, in my opinion.
I love that. Dr. Pam, thanks so much for blessing us today. I wish I could give a hug now. I'm going to give a virtual hug. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Love you. Love your mission. Love your work. Love what you represent. And it was an immense pleasure having this chat today. Please go visit Cairo Bloom. There's a link below here. Don't speak to inform. Speak to transform. We'll talk soon.
Yes. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.